Welcome back for another episode of Branching Out with Sierra. In today's episode, I'm hoping to equip you with the questions that you need, the framework that you need to set your intentions for a more purposeful new year. So that's today's episode, 7 steps to a more purposeful new year. And this is really for the people who have been reaching out to me asking if I was doing any of the end of the year, beginning of the year retreats. And I did pull back on that a little bit this year just because of capacity and really trying to pay attention to how much energy that I had to put into things after the first Tri-State Leadership Summit. And since people were requesting that, I thought maybe I would do a high-level overview of those 7 steps in the framework that I typically would teach in a retreat to kind of give you a glimpse into the framework itself so that you can run through these, whether you're listening in the car or you're listening to this at home, you want to go back and pause it and work on it as you go. Way back at the beginning, when I first launched this podcast, I highlighted some of these steps for you then, and I might have even broken them down in greater detail in some of the episodes, but I figured it's been a long time since then, and I've made some updates and some changes to my framework, so I thought I'd go over it today. So this is for those of you that have reached out and wanted to have a retreat to help you prepare for the new year, as well as reflect on the previous year and didn't get to have it this year. So hopefully that helps. Also, I have a little treat woven in here if you stick through to the end of the episode. And no, that does not mean fast forward to the end of the episode. You have to listen to the whole thing because you never know when it's going to pop up. All right, so the framework that I teach. So when I do a retreat, I talk about my Aspire to Achieve program. And I came up with the name Aspire to Achieve because I noticed a pattern where my clients were coming to me with their aspirations, with their, dreams for their future, and they really needed a framework to help them turn those into achievements. And I had a process that I had used for so many years for myself that seemed to work really well and to me was very simplistic and something that I could easily teach to others. So slowly over time, I built it into a framework and I use it as my Aspire to Achieve program. So there's Aspire to Achieve Growth. There's Aspire to Achieve Full Focus. There's Aspire to Achieve Rooted Focus. And each of these programs has a completely different purpose. And I'm happy to give a quick overview of those so people know how this kind of fits into it. So Aspire to Achieve Growth is an ongoing monthly group accountability program. So this really entails hopping on a Zoom call for 45 minutes per month in a small group setting where people come with their aspirations. They share what those are with the group and make those commitments. We celebrate any achievements since the previous month's meeting. We strategize to overcome any challenges that have come up in the past month, and everybody kind of shares out ideas based on experiences. And then we set our commitments for the next month. So there's this group accountability component. Some people still want the individual support beyond that 45 minutes a month in the group setting. So they upgrade for a 30-minute session with me to really work one-on-one through their goals, kind of work through any challenges that are coming up and do a little coaching along the way. So that's Aspire to Achieve Growth. Then came along Aspire to Achieve Full Focus, and that was based on the Full Focus Planner system that I've used for many years for goal setting, both in my personal and professional life. And it's a system that I used to share with others and love and kind of just taught in my own way. And then they came out with a certification program through the actual company that creates these. And at that time, I decided to get certified so that I could have the resources and materials to help my clients and really have, the stamp of approval to teach what I was kind of already teaching in my own way. And so I turned it into a whole retreat to teach people, which I do a workshop version too, just shortened, condensed, but teach people to not only use the framework I'm going to be talking about today, but teach them to also use the planner, use all the different features, and apply the two simultaneously. And then there's Aspire to Achieve Rooted Focus. And the Rooted Focus sessions are really for people to be able to have time set aside to hop on a virtual call for an hour and a half and be guaranteed focused time to do those most important tasks that drive you forward, whether personally or professionally. So people hop on and make a commitment. They state what they're going to do with the first 40 to 45 minutes of the session. Everybody turns off cameras, turns off mics, and gets to work on whatever their commitment was. I've had people commit to cleaning their house. I've had people commit to certain email marketing campaigns, to outreach, making phone calls, sales phone calls that they really dread making. Whatever those things are that you really need accountability and people to help you stay focused and get them done. We come back halfway, check in at that 45-minute mark, see how everybody's doing, make sure everybody was on track, and then restate commitments for the second half. So some people continue working on a bigger project for the second half, and they've come with the intention of working on the same thing the whole time. And some people have a completely different focus for the second half. I have heard that it is the most productive hour and a half of people's day. It's really time well spent. So if you say, I'm too busy for Rooted Focus, then you are an ideal person for Rooted Focus. And it is a month-to-month subscription, first 30 days, totally free. If anybody wants to hop online and look at that and take advantage and try it out, I highly recommend it. To me, it really helps you to get that massive to-do list done, but also make sure you're doing the most important things first. So there's kind of an overview of the Aspire to Achieve programs up until this point. Well, this year I did a couple of retreats with a focus on aspiring to achieve intentionality, where I focused more on this framework that I am going to be sharing with you today. So this framework came about because I feel like people just jump into goal setting and don't really take the time to consider where they've been, where they're headed, what has their focus right now in their life, or really look at the big picture. Period. They're just like throw their life into two buckets, work and personal life, and then that's it. And so this forces people to really slow down, think about who they are, what's important to them, and make better decisions and set more intentional goals moving into a new, quarter, new year, whatever it may be. So for me, step one is always assessment of core values. So in this framework, when people hear me talk about core values, I say it's really the filter through which I make decisions for my life. So decisions made simple when you know what's most important to you. You've decided that in advance. You've really thought about what you value most, how you define those values, what those values look like in action. When you take the time to consider that and really put words to it, when it comes to making difficult decisions in your personal life and your business, it doesn't matter what it is, it brings you a lot of clarity. I'm going to jump completely ahead because when I saw this week's Leadership Unscripted, I realize it's a direct connection to what I'm talking about right now. So rather than recapping it later, I thought this was the perfect opportunity. This person said, I feel like I'm constantly operating in emergency mode. Everything that comes my way feels urgent, and by the end of the day, I'm not even sure if the decisions I made were the right ones. They were just the fastest ones. I want to respond with clarity instead of reacting out of stress, but in the moment, it's hard to know what should actually guide my choices. How do I stay grounded and make thoughtful decisions when everything else feels chaotic? You probably know what I'm going to say to this based on where I'm saying it in this episode. So when you're functioning in chaos, it tricks you into believing that everything is urgent, everything is important in that moment, and causes a lot of stress. And I feel like leaders start to lose. Leaders start to lose. That's what I meant to say. I almost said losers start to lead. Leaders lose clarity when they lose their focus on what's center for them, personally or professionally. So that's where that decision filter comes in, and brings more clarity. It's the core values that I'm talking about. So I highly recommend for this individual taking time to define those core values for yourself, knowing what they mean to you, what they look like in action. So when you're functioning in what feels like chaos, you can pause for 10 seconds and look for alignment with those values. That applies to business as well. Hopefully you find yourself working in a place where the values for the business are in alignment with what you value most. Or if you're a business owner, you've built your business around your values. Makes it so much easier to make decisions. But that's what I'm going to say for this person, is allowing yourself to use your core values as an anchor for your decisions, taking the time now to reflect on what they mean to you, so that when you are functioning in those high stress moments and feel like you have to make rapid fire decisions, that 10 seconds you check for alignment, and hopefully that gives you more clarity. So hopefully that is helpful. So step one was core values, and I've found that those can shift over time. For some people, they remain the same and a constant. I know mine have been pretty consistent. Some people kind of change the values to align with the theme that they're trying to focus on for the coming year. So I've heard a lot of people choose peace as a theme into moving into the new year. So what do I need to value most in order to achieve peace in my life in the coming year? What values are going to help me guide my best decisions that will allow me to reach a place of peace in my life? So even considering, what's your word to describe 2025 and what do you want your word to be to describe 2026 might help you in thinking about what you need to value in order to get there. So that's part one. Part two, step two in the framework, is purpose. If you've never stopped to consider purpose, your deeper why before, I highly recommend using purpose as your North Star, your general direction of where you're headed. If you've written your purpose statement in a way that truly resonates with you, connects with you, it should inspire you every morning. When you don't want to get out of bed, you feel like you don't have the motivation to do anything. If you were to read your purpose statement or think about your purpose, that it would give you the energy and motivation to get up and start working towards it, because you know the impact that you can have. So I take people through a specific exercise in identifying their purpose. I do have people think about what brings them joy in their life and fills that cup for them. Those things that are their greatest strengths and they feel like are a skill set that they have acquired over time or feel like they were just naturals at. As well as considering the impact that they want to have on the world around them, whether it is their community, whether it's the country, whether it's the world, it's your family, those people that you want to leave an impact on or influence, really considering what you want that to look like. And I feel like when writing a purpose statement, it's really the intersection of all of those areas. What brings me joy, that I'm also good at, and allows me to have the impact that I want to have on the world around me. And if you can find those patterns within those three areas, you can start to formulate a purpose statement. It can be hard to summarize that in a sentence or even two sentences. It might be challenging, but you'll know when you get there. It takes some time to craft. I like formulating it in a way where it's kind of like a sentence frame, so it makes it easier. My purpose is to blank. That's where I talk about my contribution, where I'm applying my skill set and the thing that brings me joy. My purpose is to blank so that, and then impact. What is the impact I want to have by doing those things? So my purpose is to share my passion for lifelong learning and leadership with others so that they may positively influence the lives of those around them. Right? So that is an example of a purpose statement that could drive me in my personal and professional life. So step 2 is purpose. Part 3, where do you go next? That is your vision. Where are you going? Where are you headed in your future state? So this is where I have people start to think outside of just work life, but really think about life as a whole and considering 8 key areas of your life that I've identified. And considering what success looks like in each of those areas. If I were highly satisfied in that area, what would that look like for me? That is my vision for that area of my life. So I'm talking about health. I'm talking about fun and recreation, your identity. I'm talking about all of the different areas that make up life as a whole. And I'm going to come back to what all of those areas are when I talk about my wheel of life. But what I'm doing is I'm looking at each of those areas and I'm considering how would I define success and how would I know when I got there? How do I make that measurable? So for example, financial well-being. How would I define success? Maybe it is having a financial plan in place, maybe a certain amount of savings for the future, a certain amount going into investments every month. Maybe that is how I define success so I can lead the lifestyle that I want to lead. Maybe when looking at fun and rec, I'm spending a certain amount of time on my hobbies and the things that I enjoy. So defining success, where are you going? What's your vision for each area of your life, your relationships, and so much more. So consider that as you're looking at your vision for the future. So that's step 3. So step 4 is where you're actually going to measure your current state. Where am I now in relation to my vision for the future? And that is where I use the Wheel of Life. That Wheel of Life has always been available for download on my website. So if you want to hop onto my website at sierralearnership.com, you can actually do a free download of the Wheel of Life that I'm talking about here, so that you have that resource and you can actually go through the exercise. But the idea of looking at your current state is measuring your current level of satisfaction in each of those 8 categories. So I'll do one as an example real quick. So if I looked at health, well, really, when I think about health, I think my physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health. There's really 4 areas within it. I'm going to think about my current state on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being I wouldn't change a thing, it is perfection, and 0 being nothing is going right. What is my current level of satisfaction in that area? And so I would maybe say my physical health is not as strong as my mental or emotional health. Okay, so maybe I'd choose a 7 out of 10 for my mental emotional, maybe a 5 out of 10 for my physical. In spiritual health, say I give it a 6. Earlier, when I said I'm looking at my vision for the future, I'd think about, well, what would it look like to have a 9 or a 10 in spiritual health? How would I know when I've gotten there? What behaviors do I need to put into place in order to achieve that? So really, it allows you to start to see the difference between where you are and where you're headed. But as you fill in the Wheel of Life, you're shading in the score for your level of satisfaction. So it actually creates a wheel, or what should look like a wheel. Oftentimes might be a flat when you first do this exercise, but it spotlights those areas that need your immediate attention that maybe you haven't been giving the attention up until that point. So you can start to identify where there's some friction, and also identify those areas that are your greatest strengths and be able to celebrate those as well. So let's see if I can go around my wheel in my brain. I feel like I always, when I go to do this by memory, will forget one, and it will always be a different one. But you would measure success for your identity and then current state. And identity is really broken down by the person, very unique titles. The way in which you see yourself. So maybe your identity as a mom or dad, as a business owner, your identity as a brother or sister, whatever you have an identity in and want to measure success in. How do I feel about my role as a mother? How am I fulfilling that role? What is current state? Where do I want it to be? You would look at that for identity. I mentioned health. Fun and recreation, financial well-being, physical environment. What else am I forgetting here? It's going to be so obvious when I realize. 6, 7, 8. How many did I share? Matthew, 5? Did I share 5? Help me here.
I was fixing your printer, so I wasn't listening.
Oh, he's fixing my printer, so he wasn't listening to what I'm doing. Okay, financial well-being, growth, fun and rec, service, physical environment, identity, and health and relationships. I don't know if I said that, but I know I said 8 now. So hopefully that's all of them in no particular order. But again, go to sierralearnership.com and you can get that free download and actually go through that exercise and print it out. They're all on there, though I have trouble stating them every single time. I do this every quarter of every year and have for many years, but for some reason, I just can't retain information. Okay. So by doing that exercise, it spotlights what you need to make a priority. But a lot of times people will say, I want to make my lowest scores my greatest priority. And I do encourage people to slow down and really reflect on which of those areas of the wheel of life could you focus on to get the greatest impact the most quickly. So it's not always the lowest category, it's the most impactful one. So if I really focus on my health and I work on my physical health and spiritual health, and maybe my financial well-being in preparation for the future. If I work on those areas, think about all of the other areas within my wheel it could impact. A lot of times health has an impact on a lot. Financial well-being has an impact on a lot too. But basically, I ask that people identify their top 3 priorities, not just the bigger category of the wheel, like growth, but is it the personal growth or the professional growth? You're picking one of the subcategories, not saying I need to focus on growth, health, and relationships. Wow, what big buckets to focus on. But instead zooming in on the subcategories that are going to have the greatest impact. So you're going to select those 3 priorities and identify one immediate step you could take for each that would help you to move in the right direction. So that's step 5. Step 6 is then to write your goals. Now we finally made it to the point where you can actually start writing goals. Well, oh my gosh, it's so much easier to write them because you've basically funneled into them. We started with core values and purpose, and then we looked at vision for future and then current state. And now we have our 3 priorities. And within those 3 priorities, we're going to write our goals. So you are going to use a smarter framework. If you research a smarter framework, you might see a lot of different words used within that acronym. I've used a bunch of different ones over the years. This is what works best for me and my clients. So specific, measurable, actionable, risky to push you outside your comfort zone, time-bound, exciting, and relevant. So specific as you can get. Be detailed in what you're trying to achieve here. You want to know the date by which you're doing it. You want to know how you are measuring success. How can you quantify it? that's a part of measurable too. Okay, so specific and measurable together. Actionable, it has to be something you can actually take action on, can control. I always say outline the first 3 steps to make it truly actionable so you can get some momentum. Risky, push yourself beyond your comfort zone just a little bit further than what you think is possible, rather than writing a goal that you know that you can easily achieve and it's pretty much just a check mark. Push yourself. Time bound, know when you are achieving this goal by so that you can actually back into what needs to take place and identify milestones for doing so. Exciting, it should be something that motivates you and you look forward to achieving, and maybe even have a celebration planned for when you achieve it. And finally, relevant, it should be relevant and in alignment with your values, your purpose, and relevant to the wheel of life and your current state and future state vision. So you're writing your very detailed, smarter goals based on everything we've talked about so far. And then finally, step 7 is the accountability piece. How will you ensure you follow through? What will make this time different? Because a lot of times we set goals and we give up on them for a variety of reasons. One, I think a lot of times because they're not in alignment with the things that I've just outlined for you. So they don't feel relevant. They're not aligned with what your purpose is. They don't fill your cup. They don't align with what you value most. And so why are you going to keep going when things get difficult? So I highly recommend you figure out who is going to hold you accountable. What does that look like? This is why I build accountability into my programs for my clients, so you can have day-to-day accountability of getting things done at the task level through rooted focus, or you could have group accountability through A2A, Aspire to Achieve Growth, or individual accountability with me through that upgraded version of that. So somebody is holding you accountable to what you committed to doing and can help you get through those rough patches, but also celebrate success along the way. So think about who is going to help ensure that you follow through on these goals. How can you set yourself up for success? Is a peer going to hold you accountable? Is it something you can put in place for yourself with alarms in your phone, systems to track your habits, whatever resources you need, planners, checklists, things that are visuals around you, anything that can help you stay on track and hold you accountable. So think about that. How are you going to ensure you follow through? So those are my 7 steps, high level, what I do as a part of that framework. So I said if you stick through to the end of the episode, I had something to share. This might sound silly, but I recently did a workshop where I took people through these 7 steps and had created a workbook to go along with that. And we had extras. And I don't want them to go to waste. And I know that this is the time of year where people are planning for next year. So the first 3 people who reach out to me and reference this episode, I am going to mail you that workbook at no charge so that you can go through the actual exercises and complete all of this in preparation for the new year. So really helpful resource, to be completely honest. And I would definitely take advantage if I were you. Or if you aren't the one that wants to use it and you know someone that would really benefit from it, reach out on their behalf or have them reach out. But those first 3 people, I'd love to send it to you so you have it in time to hopefully sit down and reflect on these 7 areas and get those goals set to make 2026 your most intentional year yet. So how can you get in touch with me? You can shoot me an email at grow@sierralearnership.com. I'd love to hear from you. Again, those first 3, I'll get them out to you in preparation for the new year. And I hope that that's helpful for you. I just ask that you keep it to yourself and not photocopy it because people invest a lot of time and money into these retreats and workshops with me. So we want to be respectful of that. Okay, so I want to briefly touch on leadership in the wild and who I wanted to highlight this week. I'm actually going to highlight Donna Gallagher. And if you know Donna, she is in Loudoun County. She came out to a lot of Women in Winchester events for a while. You might have seen her out and about networking if you're local to Winchester. She really supported a lot of people with the marketing and branding efforts for their business. Great coach. She recently retired, which is so exciting. And I know she's transitioning into the next phase of her life, but she did an amazing thing, a great leadership move, thought about influence and impact, and reached out to me and offered up bringing out her library of books to me so that I could have them here at the office and could read them, could share them with others. Sometimes when people come over to the office, I love to send a book with them, let them read it, pass it on to someone else in their network. She sent them all over here to me, actually brought them from Loudoun County with her husband, dropped them off, and added them to my library. So my library grew, but why do I want to highlight that? I just think the people in my life who are so generous with their time, with their resources to make sure that they can have the greatest impact on others around them. It just stands out to me. And she had the opportunity to do anything with these books. She chose to give them to me, knowing that that was a way that they could reach the hands of people who really needed them and would use them to grow personally and professionally. So I wanted to give her a shout out. Thank you, Donna, for doing that. It meant a lot to me, and I know it will mean a lot to the people who get to lay eyes on those books and use them in their lives. So thank you. So let's circle all the way back to today's topic, 7 steps to a more purposeful new year. My branching out challenge to you is to take the time to go through those 7 steps. Even if you do not want to drill down to the level that I do, I know not everybody wants to do that. Some people just don't think that way, and that's wonderful. You have your own way of doing things, but just at least stop and consider those 7 things. And maybe one of those areas is something you haven't stopped to reflect on before. Maybe you've never written a purpose statement and things feel out of alignment for you. So maybe you're feeling called to do that. Or maybe you just want to consider your values for the coming year. Maybe you want to do a wheel of life. It doesn't matter. Choose one. You don't have to do the entire framework, but I want to challenge you to identify one step from this framework that you want to apply so that you can have a more purposeful 2026 or whatever year might be coming up when you listen to this episode. So I want to think about that too. Well, I thank you for sticking through to the end of the episode. I hope you found value, and we'll share it with others who might find value as well. I do want to mention again, as we're about to enter the new year, I'm really looking at getting some new sponsors involved in the podcast. So if you think that you know a business or individual that would love the opportunity to have their business spotlighted in these episodes, have some commercials built in, and get the word out, please send them my way. If it's you, please reach out. You can shoot an email to info@branchingoutpodcast.com. We actually have some sponsorship packages already created and would love to share those with you, but also happy to customize something that makes sense for you or your business. So I'm happy to think outside the box, branch out a little bit, consider other options, not do your typical podcast sponsorship. I also am going to say again, if you are listening to this and you know someone in Dunkin' Donuts that is a decision maker, I really do want to talk to them about sponsorship in the new year. So if you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, you can go to branchingoutpodcast.com and fill out an application. Just a reminder, that we do record these in person when you are a guest. We don't record virtually. So you have to be willing to travel to Winchester, Virginia if you want to be a guest on these episodes. I really do want to kind of protect that vibe and make sure we keep it this way in person. So know that if you apply, you're agreeing to come to the beautiful city of Winchester, Virginia. All right. Well, thanks again for sticking through. If you're not already subscribed, remember a new episode comes out every Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time, so you can easily subscribe. You'll get those notifications every time an episode comes out. You have enough on your plate and shouldn't have to remember that on your own. All right. I hope that as you're listening to this, if you are listening to it as it's coming out, that you're wrapping up an amazing 2025. I wish you a beautiful 2026, and I hope to hear from you soon. Thank you, as always, for your support. And until next time, keep branching out.